Thank you very much for the presentation. Are you able to share your paper? Essentially, I'm asking whether I can access that paper. It's
Yes.
very comprehensive.
Yes, the literature review, the draft one, is online. It's on the Sustainable Seas website.
Right.
The survey is also online. Feel free to fill it out. More the numbers, the better, Robin? So the draft material is online. After the 30th of June, once the final reports are in, we'll be putting all the reports up. The reports on the Māori marine economy, also the survey results, plus also an updated literature review as well. So we'll put it, share what we've got.
Our website is on this.
Oh yes, website's on the back of the handout thing there. Sustainable Seas National Science Challenge.
Do you have any more questions?
Hello. I was wondering whether quota was the best way of managing sea stocks.
Wow. Okay.
I'll sit down.
Get over here. Okay. We shall see. Hey, I think it's definitely something that we need to look at, whether or not the current system is really going to achieve the outcome that we're looking at. And for us, one of the main things that we've heard from the Māori involved in that sector now is that they want to have a voice. They want to participate in the decisions and the policies and the institutions that reform what our marine economy looks like going forward. And if we find through that process, we need to rethink the whole model, kia ora, you know. Kia ora.
Great, thank you. We've got one more.
Hi, thank you very much, Mika and Dr. Lewis. I thought they were very good presentations. I have questions for you both. Dr. Lewis, if I'm not too sure, but I just want to go back to your definition of blue economy. I might have just caught it wrong, but I noticed there was just a bit of an imbalance between your inputs and your outputs. And I wondered whether that was done purposefully or in a way to try and, So you've got activities that utilize ecological and cultural appropriate technologies, but at the end you talk about social, cultural and ecological well-being. Social purposely missed out in the first part. I'm interested as to whether that was done purposefully or what's the...
Not purposefully in the sense that the social is supposed to be excluded. Purposefully in the sense that I don't like sentences with too many words and commas. And so in a sense, we're trying to work out how we can write that statement without falling back into a more traditional sustainability definition. But thank you, I hadn't noticed that it wasn't there. Well, I hadn't noticed it wasn't there because it's here, and the fact that it's here and not there, you're right, it creates an imbalance. So, thank you.
We got a definition for that. Whairawa, whai oranga. Yeah, whai mana. There you go.
The question I wanted to thank you very much for that. Dr. Mika, I'm just very interested in the way that this whole treaty settlements have taken place. You talk about a Māori blue economy. Yet the way that the treaty settlements have been allocated, very much based on, as you say, hapu and iwi allocations. Just interested in your comments as to how you bring those very divergent, very different hapus, iwis and so forth. Some, as you mentioned, Murupara, coastal, if you will. How do you bring together all those very different moving parts, very dynamic cultures in itself, from the north all the way to the south, from the east to the west, to develop a unified thinking in terms of next steps and so forth, or have you already looked into those areas? I have a second question, but I'll be interested in your first question.
Far out, Tony. Okay. Well, I guess if you look at the settlement process, it took 10 years, roughly, maybe 12, to resolve this idea of allocation. How do we allocate the treaty settlement fisheries assets to iwi? My short answer is that it'd probably be a long conversation, but there have been examples of iwi collaborating already, and that is through shared ownership of Moana, New Zealand. So all iwi, all 54 iwi that have received treaty settlement fisheries assets are part of Moana, New Zealand. So as shareholders in that, they're sort of part of that process now. And also another example is ICP, Iwi Collective Partnership. You know, we've got about 16 iwi that have decided to pull their quota and market it jointly to the marketplace. But they're also actively engaging in the business of fishing now as a result of doing that. So scale and collaboration through, achieving scale through collaboration is definitely a strategy that iwi are pursuing now. At the same time, I think it's important that we recognise iwi and their mana whenua and mana moana interests and work through that process as well, and recognise that as the basis for engaging with iwi.
Well, I'd have to add something to that. I think it's an excellent question. One of the things that's really cool about Jason's answer, that it'll take a long time, is that in the meantime, what we have is that the money is flowing in still, and assets are not being alienated. So it's kind of cool. Yeah. And then I'd add the other thing there is that temporal horizon is something that we should all kind of learn from as we think about investment into the future. So that the sea's going to be around for a long time, and hopefully we are as well. And the sort of requirements of expected rates or required rates of return on an annual basis are not the best way in many ways to think about the future.
If I may, Madam Chair. The second question I had is I'm working also in the Pacific, because as you probably know, some Pacific Island countries are also developing their own blue economy as a result of the trickle down from the UN kind of conventions and so forth. I'd be very interested because a country, for example, like PNG, Tonga and Samoa and others are developing. Is there a notion, I know you talk a lot about Māori economy, but in the future, as part of your next steps, to try and be, you mentioned Hawaii to Aotearoa, developing a much broader base of economy that connects Aotearoa with your brothers and sisters in the Pacific, the huge amount of resource, not only in fishing, but in tourism and agriculture and so forth. Is that part of your thinking? Just be interested in your comments on how you see the wider Pacific. Thank you very much.
Okay. Kia ora, Tony. I think that, well, one of our Mātauranga Māori Advisory Committee members said to us that we needed to engage more with the Pacific through our research. And within this phase of it, we weren't really able to really do that. And the next phase of it, that's definitely something that we'll be pursuing more. And I'm going to be proposing to Linda Faulkner and Julie Hoare that we have a conference on this in Tonga sometime soon. So, be really keen to talk with you about how we can do that, and so look forward to seeing how that rolls.
Another great question.
So we'll go to our last question here, and then afterwards you can talk to these guys yourself.
Thank you. I just wondered during the consultation what feedback you had received in terms of the role of marine reserves as opposed to MPAs in a blue economy.
Apologies, guys.
Here's the answer.
So the marine reserves being legislated under what kind of context? And Reserves Act. Yes, the challenge has been confronting those questions, not as part of the Blue Economy project, but more generally in terms of the big question that underlines the challenge around implementing an EBM and how do you do an ecosystem-based management structure. I'll defer to them around and not answer your question directly in that context. But one of the really intriguing things around MPAs, marine reserves, and these sort of non-regulated, agreed upon spaces. So you might have mataitae and so on that are sitting outside of that harsh no economic activity within the space, is that they do offer a different way forward. They offer a potential for a different form of management, a different way of thinking about conflicts between marine use, a way of inviting community voices into the conversation about what happens with this kind of space. And I think a way of generating a resolution around those conflicts that may appear at first to be flexible and non-certain with respect to investors, but actually deliver a much greater form of certainty in terms of ongoing kind of negotiation, so that the certainty is not established within a court at all the expenses that come with that, but the certainty is established within a set of obligations and ongoing negotiations around those obligations. Now that is not going to appeal to many investors off the bat, but over a period of time and some of the demonstrations of some of the gains that can be made through that sort of process. And I think that's one regulatory tool for delivering a blue economy. I know that doesn't answer your question directly around reserves, but I'm probably not the right person to answer that question in a public forum. There are people who know these things better than I do.